All right, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Uh, no, today we do have a. No, we're not talking about geckos today, but we are actually talking about what you feed your geckos. Mariana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mariana, and I'm the owner of Beastmode Silks West / Beastmode Silks. And my business is based out of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nice.
Very nice.
All right. So, what is your herp history? Right? How did you get into this whole thing?
Oh man. So my son has loved reptiles since he was a little guy. He was 3 with a giant, like, probably python around his neck. And he would always ask me, Mom, can I get a reptile? Mom, can I get a reptile? And I went, no, we can't have heat lamps because we have cats. And so I said no for the longest time. And he would go collect them outside. We lived in California, so there were alligator lizards everywhere and just little,
Oh,
like lizards. And
yeah.
so he had fish growing up, and then he kind of got out of that, and then he wanted fish again. So I said, the only way you're going to get fish is if you get an acrylic tank because it's upstairs and I don't want glass, the whole, the mom thing. And so we went to go look for one. We couldn't find one. And she goes, what about this little veiled chameleon? And I went, it's got a heat lamp. No, please, please. I went, okay. So we were at Petco. And so we got a little chameleon, veiled chameleon, got the care sheet, the whole spiel, and took him home because we were told it was a male. We knew nothing, but I did some Google research, and that's the number one thing I find is the scariest thing, is because if you find the wrong information and you follow that information, you're not going to have success. And we named him Evo because he was so fast, and my son had an Evo at the time.
Okay.
And so this little guy just took off on my arm, and I'm like, oh my god, he's so cute. And no, actually, it was Evo. And so we are taking care of him, and he starts getting big. And one day he was at the bottom of his enclosure, and I went, oh my gosh, this does not look right. I got him right to the vet, and they were like, well, this is a female. And I went, what? And she was egg bound. Not quite egg bound. She had eggs, but she was having a real problem because we did have the compact UVB. We were giving supplements, but just wasn't. She didn't have quality of life, and we did not know any better. And so we tried for a few weeks to take care of her, and she passed away due to being egg bound. She wouldn't be able to go through the surgery, so that wasn't an option. And I got really attached to her during this process. And so I vowed I'm going to do right by her, and I'm going to get another chameleon. So I got a male, veiled, because I'm a sucker for veileds. And so I had my first male, and I vowed I'd never have another female. You can't get me to get a female. No way. So fast forward, now we have heat lamps. Now I have 4 chameleons. Now my son has a snake. Kind of get that picture. We now have plenty of heat bulbs. And I went into a local pet store that I had actually got them to stop selling chameleons because they just did not have the correct setups. And I am just an advocate. I have a foundation for MBD that I help keepers with. I will send them supplies. It could be a light, supplement, silkworms, whatever. And there was this little female, and my son comes running back. They have a chameleon. And I went, oh my God, let me get up there, because they had promised me they weren't going to sell them. Well, somebody had just surrendered her. And she was this tiny little thing. She weighed 30 grams. And the manager said, do you want to take her home? So I FaceTimed my husband and I said, can I bring her home? No, not can I. I'm going to bring her home. And he's like, oh my God. And I go, I can't leave her here. She's going to die. So by the time I got home, he had already built this makeshift like hospital bin kind of thing. But he took 2x4s, wrapped screen around it. We had, because I had sifted some things with a screen, so we had screen on the top. And I took her to the vet the next day, and she was near death. And the vet, I said, the first thing we need to do are x-rays, because if she's full of eggs, there's no way that she's going to survive. And the vet took the x-rays, said, she's good. She was starting to produce the eggs, but she wasn't full of them. So I'm like, okay. And I go, well, what do you think? She goes, well, she seems to have a will to live, so let's just go with it. And I said, okay. And I named her Sweet Pea. She was my little Sweet Pea. And so Sweet Pea started to become this, like, the sensation on different Facebook groups like Chameleon Central and Veiled Chameleons, like on Facebook. And so I started her own Instagram page, and she got this following. And so then I got with Bill Strand. He was helping me. And she just like was thriving. And so I went to a Christmas party, and that's where I met Bill for the first time. But they had an auction, and they were giving away a camouflage chameleon. I was like, oh man. So all the money was going to go to Cheryl Garcia's rescue. So I bought $100 worth of tickets, and I put tickets and there were like 8 different things you could get. And then I put all the rest of them in camouflage. Didn't win the chameleon, but I won a sculpture from this woman. And so I messaged her, and her name was Susan, and she owned Beastmode Silks. And so, but she also did pottery. And so I said, I don't even know what you should sculpt for me, because I have so many chameleons. I don't know which one I want. So she said, send me pictures of all of them. And then she was like, oh my God, you're Sweet Pea's mom. And I said, yes. And she said, can I send you silkworms? And I went, okay. Because the only time I had ever gotten silkworms before wasn't from her, but a different company. They came in a ball of mush, and they were dead, and and I went, oh my God. So when she said, can I send you silkworms? I'm thinking in my head going, oh yay, I'm going to get this ball of mush. And she sent me the silkworms, and they were beautiful. And I said, oh my goodness, like, these are great. Can I start, ordering them from you? And she said, you will never pay for a silkworm from me. She goes, I'm sending them to Sweet Pea. She goes, whenever you need them, you let me know. So we became close friends through Facebook. We all have friends through social media, some that we never meet, but they're good friends. And so she invited me to go to Tinley with her. And so I flew out to Chicago, had never met her in person, but we FaceTimed every day. And flew out to Chicago. It was right when COVID hit, because they actually canceled Tinley because of COVID. But when I got to her house and I saw her silk room, I was so engrossed with the silkworms. I'm like, oh, these are so cool, because she had huge ones and she had little babies. And she said, well, you should try hatching them when you go home. And I went, no. She goes, yeah, you should just try. She's like, just order like 100. So I ordered 100 eggs, hatched them. They hatched. She goes, okay. She's like, order like 10,000. And I went, maybe 250. So I ordered 250. They hatched. She goes, just order 25,000. I went, maybe 1,000, maybe 5,000. So I kept hatching these silkworms, and only like 10% of people are successful when they hatch. So when they're trying to hatch chameleons and to keep them alive, silkworm eggs, not chameleons. And so, she was just like, you're so good at this. She's like, there must be something in your environment that's really good for the silkworms. And now she's in Chicago, totally humid, different weather than Las Vegas. And so I ordered 25,000, hatched them out. Then I just started on Facebook, like, hey, does anyone want silkworms? Like, if you pay for shipping, I'm going to send them to you for free, because I just had to get rid of them. So I started shipping. And one day she messages me and she goes, okay, you have a website. And I went, a what? She goes, you're all set up. She goes, it's mirrored to mine. She goes, all you have to do is put in your information for, Square and for PayPal. She goes, you're set up. And I went, what? She goes, yep. She goes, you're going to be live in like 2 days. I went, what? And that's how I really got started into Silkworms, was through Susan.
That's
And
awesome.
so then she set up Beast Mode Silks West for me. So I did West Coast. She did East Coast because she was from Chicago. And then eventually, and she also did wholesale. Then eventually she said, you know what? I'm giving you all of Beast Mode. I'm just going to do retail. I'm just going to do wholesale. And I went, what? It was a lot of what? Because she would just like, here you go, here you go. And so I started the entire country. And it's just like, it exploded. And so she was doing all the pet stores, like different breeders, whatnot. And then I was just doing all orders online. And then a little over a year ago, she passed away. And she passed away from pancreatic cancer. And she was my everything. Like, she was my best friend, my sister. And before she passed away, she sent me all of her silkworms and she said, you're beast mode. And I went, what? there's kind of like a theme. What? And she said, I can't do it anymore. I'm not strong enough. She sent it all to me. And she sent me all of her customers, how she contacted them, their addresses, their email addresses, everything. And so basically since 2023, end of 2022, it's been all mine. So I've had a lot of learning curves to deal with wholesale when somebody wants 10,000 silkworms versus somebody who wants 25. So I have the whole gamut of breeders, just keepers, everyday keepers,
Yeah.
pet stores, you name it. I have it. So, and I love it. It's a passion of mine. And one of my suppliers, he's like, aren't you sick of it yet? And I'm like, no, I love it. I go into my room and I like zone out. My husband built me a silk room, took half of the garage, built a silkworm. It's temperature controlled. It's the whole deal. So that's basically my intro and how I got started in the silkworms.
And you get to keep your friend with you, right? She's kind of with you, you know?
Oh, she's with me, let me tell you, because things happen in the silk room that are unexplainable. So, like, things flying off a shelf and hitting me in the shoulder, and I'll put it back.
Trying to tell you something.
And it flies off again. And then as soon as I recognize, like, I acknowledge, I'll be like, okay, I love you too. I put it back. It doesn't fly off again. Like a roll of gutter guard, like plastic, like that just sits there. So she's with me all the time. And, she would just be like, oh my God, this is so awesome that you're doing this, And so I do it for her. It is a piece of her. And, it's just a really cool thing that I get to continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though she's not here, she's here.
The legacy, both of you. So, it sounds like destiny. This whole thing was.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a really cool, like, way that we met. Like, just one raffle ticket out of 100. And then her knowing who I was just through a chameleon that I rescued, and then inviting me to go visit her. And my husband was like, are you nuts? Like, you don't know who this person is. And I said, worst case, I get an Uber and I get a hotel and come back home. And it wound up being she basically changed my life. I mean, my life is, I was in a classroom before, and I had lived in California, and we moved out to Las Vegas in November before COVID. Now I can't imagine doing anything else. So it's just really it's a cool story, and she, like you said, she's always going to be with me for sure. Yep.
Silver lining. It's a beautiful story. It was a beautiful story.
Yeah, thank you. It's I have happy days now. The first year I was a complete mess. But it's kind of like every time I go into that room, she's with me. So it's just a really cool thing for me to be able to do every day.
Nice. So with that, which you said you being in there all the time. Now, you said that your son's involved with you as well,
Yes.
right? How
Douglas
did
is,
you make that happen? I'm still trying to make my kids get involved with my stuff, and
yeah,
always
well,
trying to
he's
figure out
older.
how.
I don't know how old your kids are, but he was in his 20s when I started. And we have chameleons. I have a jewel lacerda. We have snakes. We have a snake, Flash, who actually eats silkworms. So he's always on my like social media because people don't know that different things eat silkworms. And
Oh,
that's what's so huge is that we have all these different reptiles and amphibians and they eat the silkworms and they're so healthy. So he's been here from minute one. And so he's basically honestly, like when it started, I was like, dude, you need to take care of the silkworms while I go visit Susan. So, I'd go fly out and see her because once we became friends, I was in Chicago like every 2 months, 3 months. She would come to Las Vegas, back and forth, back and forth. We were always visiting. And so I trained him how to feed the silkworms, how to take care of them. He knew the temps that needed to be there. And he can help with everything. He does help with everything. And he's in charge of preparing local orders and local pet stores. So
nice.
that's kind of like his division per se. And then I usually ship out all retail, but he can ship as well. So if I was on a vacation, as a matter of fact, it happened. Susan messaged him and she was like, D, I need you to like count out this many silkworms and I'm going to send you the address and you got to ship them. And I was like, oh my God, is he, it's because I was like, this is her name, like beast mode. I didn't want anything to happen. And he did a perfect job. So if anything were to happen, he can step right on in and he can do everything with it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because he enjoys it, obviously.
Yeah, and we have an abundant supply of feeders for our chameleons, and we have a 10-year-old chameleon right now that eats silkworms. I have them behind me. I have 4 of them behind me. I have one in my room was rehomed to me with some eye issues, and yeah, so that's the best part is that we have them all the time to feed to our reptiles.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, so you're a silkworm person. Do you still have other feeders that you feed your animals? Do you like to give
Oh,
them a variety?
yes, and that is the one thing that I would say is that I don't think there is a best feeder out there. Everybody says, oh, this is the best, or oh, this is the best. And I think the best thing that you can do for your reptiles is to give them a variety of healthy feeders because some feeders are harder to digest, some are easier to digest. Some have the chitin, some don't. Like silkworms are super soft bodied, easy to eat. They're full, they're great, but they're also slow. I give my chameleons, I have dubia colonies. They're because they like to hunt as well. I personally don't feed crickets, but that's just my personal choice. My 3 primaries are dubia, silks, and I do have superworms and black soldier flies or black soldier fly larvae. Those are the ones that I concentrate on.
Do you breed those as well?
Should I say that out loud? I do have a dubia I have a pretty big dubia colony. Superworms, I just don't want to get into it. And it's funny because dubia, like a lot of the people, especially my local customers, I'll ask them, do you want dubia roaches? Like I would just give them to them because I have so many. They're like, no, my reptiles don't eat them. And I'm like, what? So I have them. And there's times like if I'm helping somebody through the foundation, I will send them dubias. I'll send them whatever I have. So I don't necessarily breed those, but I have a lot on hand. And if somebody needs them, I'll ship them out to them. So.
Yeah, I said if I didn't have to, if I could get rid of crickets, I would. I just don't like them. But
and that's one of the great advantages to silkworms. They don't smell.
Yeah.
They don't make noise. They can't jump and hide. They're kind of slow, and that's like part of the whole benefit of adding, which I know we're going to get into a little later.
Yeah. So, for you, what's the day-to-day operations like for you? Working in the silkworm.
So day to day, day to day is not so difficult. I have to feed them. So I typically have 10 to 20 trays of 25,000 each.
Yeah.
So I feed them every day, and I go through at least a minimum of 10 pounds of prepared silkworm chow per week. And so daily I feed them. I have to regulate temps daily. We did have an incident not long ago where the thermostat did not turn off, and it got almost 100 degrees in the room, and that wasn't fun. But so day to day, I feed them. Mondays are my prep day for my orders. Orders go out on Tuesday. So Monday, and I hand count all of my orders. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 or it doesn't matter if it's 25. There's always a percentage extra because I want to make sure that you have more, not less than. Because there's nothing worse than when you order, let's just say hornworms, and you order 25 and you get 24 and 5 of them are dead, or they're not healthy. They're just not really growing. I make sure that there's extra so that even if there is some die off, you have what you ordered plus usually at least 10% extra.
Yeah.
So
actually, I do remember that too, because I did order some from you. I believe it was last year, and I was actually pretty worried because it was
last year. Wait a minute.
Yeah. I was worried because it was getting really hot. And you're like, no, don't worry, it'll get there. It's like I'm in Vegas, and I was like, oh, okay. And then you're like, I'm gonna send you some extra just in case, and you did, and it was like, okay, that's cool.
And generally, I have shipped from Las Vegas when it's been 100 degrees to Alaska.
Okay.
Now you talk about 100 degrees when it's 10 degrees outside in Alaska. Yeah. And they have all survived. So I really feel like a lot of it has to do with how you feel about what you do. You have to love what you do. If you're a breeder and you don't love your animals and you're just going, oh yeah, well, you're not going to be as successful as if you're loving your animals. That's one reason people ask me all the time, well, do you want to breed chameleons? I'm like, I'd love to, but I'd never get rid of them. I would be so picky as to who would receive them that I would be overrun with reptiles.
No. Yeah.
So and I'm sure you guys know that. It's like, you can't.
Yeah, I gotta ask certain questions, especially like with my chihuahuas. Like when people tell me like, hey, I wanna hybrid, I'm like, dude, don't tell me that, please don't. I'm like, if you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. Just don't tell me. I was like, I'm making these chihuahuas for a certain reason, and it just wasn't that. Because like I said, a lot of people don't put no thoughts into it. They just want to do it, and it's not like I said, Anthony. We had this conversation before. Say now, if you put in some kind of thought into it of why you want to do this, perfect. But if you just want to do it just to do it, I can't really get behind that. And then the same thing for my Stropharis. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm just gonna put them in this." Well, I was like, "Well, you do need UVB. You do need a heat lamp on top, and if you're not gonna give them any of that, you don't need this because they're not gonna survive for you." So I understand that.
And people don't understand. I mean, and it's funny because in the Sweet Pea podcast that I did, I always say I was that owner, or that I say owner because I didn't even know keeper was the term. And I was that keeper that had that coil bulb that, didn't like, I just had like the heat bulb that was recommended. I didn't, I was uneducated.
Yeah.
And and if somebody wants to get something and you're trying to educate them and they're just like, oh yeah, I know. Because as soon as they say, oh yeah, I know, it's kind of like they
Red flags.
don't care enough
Yeah.
to listen to what you have to say when this is what you do. You
Yeah.
know, and so that's why it would be it would be so hard for me to breed anything.
Absolutely. Myself,
Oh,
I don't get it. To you, it's a $100 gecko. To me, it's something that I raised their parents, right? From
exactly.
to making them. I took the eggs out of the bin. I watched them every day.
Mm-hmm.
I fed these things their first meal. I watched them shed their first shed. You're going to take it and go stick it in a bin, and it's nothing
Right.
to do. But to me, I'd rather keep it.
Exactly.
Why
Yeah,
I
and there's so many people that just, or you see, or they think that their setup is great, no matter what it is. I'm a chameleon lover, so my mind usually goes to chameleons. But with any type of reptile, you have to have like not every snake requires the same thing. I'm sure not every gecko requires the same thing. Chameleons don't require the same thing. There's different types of UVB, different strengths. Some do better in a warmer basking spot. Some need a cooler basking spot, like a Jackson's versus a Veil. They're completely different, and you can't take both of them and put them in similar environments. And so I think it's really important that we know what the environments are.
absolutely,
So,
Exactly.
absolutely.
yeah.
So what are the good benefits of silkworms and having them in your rotation?
Well, I think one of the major benefits is that there's a consistent nutritional quality with a silkworm because you have to feed them specific things or they're not going to survive. You can put a roach in a bin and it's going to live and live and live. Same with superworms.
Forever.
You can put I just got 2,000 superworms. I could put them in a container and just let them sit there. And they're not going to, they're just going to sit there and they're going to live. But with a silkworm, you either have mulberry leaves, you have commercial chow, and then I also feed carrots because they thrive on carrots. I did do when I first started with Susan, I actually did an experiment and I put 25 silkworms in a cup with carrots and they lived for a month on just carrots. Now, would I want my reptile to just have a silkworm with just carrots? No. But the commercial chow has a lot of added vitamins and minerals, different things that a mulberry leaf isn't going to provide.
Yeah.
But the mulberry leaves, they grow faster on a mulberry leaf than they do on the commercial chow. In Las Vegas, we can't have mulberry trees. There are mulberry trees, but now you can't plant them. So I don't have the luxury of going out and like chopping down a bunch of branches, which I would have a hard time doing anyways because I don't want to mess up a beautiful tree. But if you have mulberry leaves or you have access to buying them, that's great, but you kind of know what you're giving them versus you can neglect a roach, you can neglect superworms, you can't neglect crickets. They don't live long enough to do anything anyway. So
They just get stink and stuff starts flying out of there.
Yeah,
and
even black soldier fly larvae, I'll stick carrots in there. I'm really into like gut loading. You have to have a gut load, but the benefit I think for the silkworm is that in the food that they eat, especially the ones that I send because it is on a commercial chow, I know the ingredients that are in that chow and everything in there is great for the silkworm to thrive versus other things. And another benefit is that they are easy to care for, like we talked before. They don't jump, they don't make noise, they don't hide, they don't bite. They don't have a strong jaw and they don't have legs. So depending on certain things, they can hurt your reptiles. I had I had a 9-year-old nosy bee that had been bitten by a superworm and had this little scar on his mouth. And that's fairly common for them to kind of get, especially if their mouth is available, they can bite the reptile. So
Yeah.
silkworms, and they're soft bodied, so they're really good for um, reptiles that aren't necessarily healthy. Maybe that a reptile that's getting rehabbed, it's much easier to eat, and they're slow moving. They're not so slow that they don't attract a reptile, but they're slow enough that a reptile that might not be 100% healthy can get to them. So it makes a big difference, I think, to have them as part of a diet.
Oh, definitely. Do you make that
The
diet?
chow.
Yeah.
So, funny story. I do have a recipe for chow. No one
Okay.
has a recipe for chow except the commercial breeders or of the silkworm eggs. They send
Okay.
the chow. Um, and Susan came out to visit one time, and we literally worked for almost a week making chow, and she'd taste it.
Oh.
I was like, "That's all you? I am not tasting it because it's extremely sour."
Yeah.
Really?
She said it's very sour. It's kind of like it has citric acid in it, so it's like like the sour warheads and
Yeah.
like the sour candies. That's the powdery stuff, citric acid, and so I can make my own. For a while, I did, but prices have skyrocketed. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
what
it's cheaper
what
to
a
buy it in
bag
bulk.
a 50-pound bag before was like $80, and now it's like almost $200. So it
Hmm.
doesn't benefit me to make my own when I can buy the same amount for $120 a bag
Yeah.
versus one. You know what I mean? So I can. So if there was ever a time that I didn't have chow readily available, I could make my own.
Okay.
But
Nice.
and people try to get it from me all the time, and it's like, nope, not happening.
Is it like a hornworm type of chow, like the stuff they put in the bottom of the cup type of?
It is. It
Yeah,
is very similar. It's a different mixture, but it's very similar.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like got that thickness. It's
They just never been around me. So I was telling Jay, I was, I've always heard they were great in calcium, and they've always been on my radar, but I've never had them. I live in the East Coast, in Connecticut, and
well, I should send you some.
hornworm. The hornworms I can get,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not worms. They're like it's one of the. They're just not here.
And that's one of the reasons is because they really are hard to raise. And the other thing is you have to be clean. And not just clean, but they are sensitive to smells. They are
Mhm.
sensitive to hand sanitizer. I had a breeder, and he breeds chameleons and geckos. He was like, he would order 1,000 at a time, and within 5 days they'd all be dead. And I'm like, you've got to be doing something. So we went through all these different things. Well, his wife changed soap. And the difference in the soap, he's like, I go, ask your wife if she's done anything different. He messaged me back. He goes, well, she changed the soap. I said, are you wearing gloves? He said, no. I said, go back to the old soap. I said, or get gloves or both. And it was the soap that was killing the silkworms
Oh
because
Wow.
he
wow.
was grabbing them with his hands. I don't touch
Hmm.
the silkworms with my hands, period. I have like little tongs, and I've got gloves on all the time because they are sensitive.
Yeah.
And so they're sensitive to like a big heat variant. The smells, I can't, like they have their own room, like I have an air conditioner heater combo in there. And they are very sensitive, but once you get them, if you can get them from point A to point B, and point B you take care of them,
Yeah.
and you're not poking at them and touching them. People like to touch them because they're cute, they're like, oh, look at people. I mean, especially the moths. It's so funny because
Yeah.
people are like, oh
It
my god,
looks
the moths. And
looks
I'm
like a
just
little
like,
sky puppy.
They look. I think they look like a little Pokemon character.
Yeah,
I
little
posted
sky
one the
puppy.
other day, and it was like scratching itself, and it was the cutest
Yeah,
thing. And it's so sad because they live for like 4 days,
yeah, because
maybe
they're
a week.
literally only meant to breed, right? After they turn
What a
into a
sad
moth.
life, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they literally. It's like there's moths. They mate, they die. Like the moths, they mate. The females lay the eggs, and within a week, they're dead. And
yeah,
people don't want to feed the moths because they're so cute. And I'm like, feed them because they're gonna die anyway. So give your reptile
yeah,
a treat.
yeah. Because
But yeah,
they
so
can't fly either, right?
no, they don't fly.
That's
They
crazy.
I didn't
they
know.
just
Huh.
they're it's sad. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Interesting.
yeah. And the reptiles, they love them.
yeah,
They love the moths. They're such a great treat. And but yeah, I think that, the benefits of having them in your rotation is just that it's just something different. I have a chameleon behind me that won't even eat a silkworm.
Really?
He's
really.
my little stinker pot, I call him. I'm like, you're so spoiled. You want superworms and dubias, and all the other ones are like silkworms. But he's like, nah, I'll take a moth, but he doesn't want a silkworm. So I'm like, okay, you're gonna whatever,
Yeah,
Every once in a while I
yeah,
can sneak one in there with a superworm, but yeah, they're just a good addition. But like I said, I don't think one is better than the other. They're
yeah.
just great to have, especially if you have a sick reptile because they are easier to eat. And oh, I've got a cat joining me, and they are just they're just soft bodied. They're easy to digest, and they're just healthy.
I've
Yeah.
heard they have a super high as far as feeders go. They're on the higher end of the spectrum for calcium. I've heard they
Yes, they are.
great
As a
for.
matter of fact, I have a paper. I have two papers because I found something on from a vet, and he compares all the feeders to human food. And I
Really?
just think it's the funniest thing. And it was funny because somebody was like, "Oh well, like you wouldn't feed your chameleon a Big Mac," and I'm like, "Exactly, not on a regular. We can't go eat Big Macs every day." But he literally was like, "I have the paper," and he was like, he compares crickets to French fries. It's like
Really?
basically a
Damn.
treat, like low protein, high fat. Roaches, lean protein with variable fat, it's like steak or hamburger. Silkworms, vitamin A, lean protein, it's like turkey breast. So I was like, oh hey, I like that. And then black soldier fly larvae, they're like he compares it to eating a Tums tablet. They're so full of calcium. I mean,
Really?
there's
Dang.
black soldier fly larvae
Yeah.
is really high in calcium, which is
I've never
great.
No.
those
Yeah,
either.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. And
Listen, do
I
your
love them.
chameleons? I
I'm
was saying,
sorry.
do your chameleons? Do you let them turn into flies and let your
Oh
chameleons start
yeah.
going crazy
So
and trying to get them?
I will only get my black soldier fly larvae from Simton. And they do have a discount code, and I just got them because I had heard of them on the podcast, on Bill Strand's podcast. So
Yeah,
I ordered them, and I really feel like between the silkworms, because of the calcium content, and the black soldier fly larvae, they really helped her with,
Good.
because with the MBD, you got to
Good.
get your bones, because you can't cure MBD, but you can stop it.
yeah,
So I fed her a lot of like calcium feeders, and the black soldier fly larvae, they're great. They're another like soft bodied, they're tiny, even like extra larges or like a half an inch if you're
yeah.
lucky.
They're real
That's
But
small.
I
long.
feed them to them, and then you can sprinkle them in the bottom. Like I sprinkle them in the plants. So then they go through their whole little process, and then they just emerge as flies, and then the chameleons have a treat. And so I'll never know. Like one day there'll be like 10 flies in the enclosure because they've all turned into flies. But they're great. They are another great feeder
That's
for
very.
sure.
Yeah,
But and
That's a.
then super worms. But this is the funny one. Super worms are high fat. They compare it to 2 sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits. So that's what I mean. And wax worms is butter, because
yeah,
wax worms are so high fat. But
Yeah.
now, if you have a thin something, if you have a reptile that you're rehabbing and they're super thin, well, those are wax worms are great. like as part of the rotation. So it's just really, it's like you have to really kind of know what you're getting and what they are, because we don't think of it as human food, but silkworms are also a delicacy for humans.
Yep.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I personally have not had one, but it was really funny. A customer of mine, she sent me something, or she posted it on Facebook, and she said, I went to go order, I think it was Thai or Chinese food. She goes, they had silkworms on the
Thai.
menu. And I said, please order the silkworms. I will pay for them. Just eat one for me. She's like, yeah, no. And actually, a friend of mine, his daughter ate a live silkworm and a live hornworm.
Oh. Ooh.
Why, I'm not sure, but
Well.
she said silkworm tasted a little better than the hornworm. And a hornworm is basically, that's the other thing. A hornworm they have is like drinking a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like really no nutritional content, and which is another thing that I like to do with hornworms on supplement days. I get hornworms and I put on their vitamin days. So like I try to have hornworms. I don't always, but I try to have hornworms on their supplement days because they love them. They only get them every 2 weeks if they do, and they're so full of moisture.
Hydration. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the key, is you have to have hydrated and well-fed feeders regardless of what they are.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You can't give something that's not eaten in a month, because a roach cannot eat for a month.
I've had roaches that have not eaten in like 9 months. I totally forgot I had some. And
oh no.
Yeah, I totally forgot I had some. I'm like, are you guys still alive in here? Yeah, they're still kicking. So,
yeah, they
no, because like my
it
chihuahuas.
says a lot about them, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean my chihuahuas went off of them, so I just totally forgot all about them because I was trying to give it to my chihuahuas and they were just, no, I don't want it, I don't want it. Mm-hmm. So I totally forgot I had them in there. They were too big to feed to my other geckos.
Yeah, isn't it funny though how they like certain things and they dislike certain things, and it's
just like different personalities, like a different time of the day. I was actually today, I did feed some roaches today to my chihuahuas because they dropped eggs, right? So one of them, she smashed like 3 of them. I was like, oh, okay, cool, good. The other one that dropped eggs, she's like, no, get it out my face, get it out my face. I'm like, come on.
She's like, I want silkworms.
Yeah, she wants something. I even tried to give her waxworms today too, and she's
really?
Like,
no.
Yeah, she's just like, I'm just not having it today. I just pop these eggs out, leave me alone.
And now that you mentioned eggs, that's great. The silkworms are great for females that lay eggs because of the high calcium content. They're great for giving them the calcium that they need for that egg laying.
Post-laying meal, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And so, and I'm getting ready to do multi-packs of extra small and small, and then small and medium. And then I'm thinking of doing large and extra large. And my extra larges are a week away from cocooning. So they literally can be 2 or 3 inches long.
Really? That was what I was going to ask you. So they can, I know there's a name for it. I don't remember it, but they go through all these different
the end stars. Yeah.
So how they get up to 2 inches, you're saying, a full before
they can get up to almost 3 inches.
Ooh, so it's similar to a hornworm, no?
Yes. Yeah, they're similar. They can get is similar to a hornworm. Hornworms can get a little fatter around, but they can get as long as a hornworm, just about. Awesome. And so, I mean, and it's funny because I'll get people, and that's another thing, on the website. For me, smalls are 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. Mediums are a 1/2 inch to an inch, and larges are 1 inch and above. And I really don't sell extra larges unless I have an abundance. I mean, I do have customers that are they get extra larges and they'll just contact me and I send them out. And sometimes I get them so large that I will give them to my local customers, because I'm like, by the time I send them, they're going to cocoon. Yeah. But I also, my regular customers, I'll ask them, do you want some XLs? Do you care if they cocoon? And they're like, no, I want them. I don't care if they cocoon, because then but sometimes there's moths in there by the time they get them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and another thing is too, people will ask, do you have any cocoons right now? And I'll say, sure. And I'll send them. I'll just put cocoons in the box. So then they'll get moths at some point. So I try to, I try to work with them because people just don't understand like how big they can get, but how small I sell as well. People are like, these are so small. I went, well, you ordered a small, and it says on the website because there are people who have hatchlings. They can't eat a large silkworm, so I have to look at what size you order because I don't know what. And that's another thing I was thinking about on the website, like putting a box like, what are you feeding, or the age, so that I can kind of get a mindset of what they might need versus what they think they need. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we don't realize what the sizes are.
Yeah. How small is your extra small going to be?
I'm sorry?
I said, how small your extra small is going to be?
The extra smalls I'm thinking are hatchlings, like where they're just turning white. Like they're like an eighth of an inch to a quarter. Okay. And I sell those now to breeders. Okay. Yeah. And they're great because they move a lot. The little ones move a lot. And so like hatchling chameleons, they love them because they're attracted to the, and they get fruit flies. That's pretty much, or like pinheads. So the silkworms, for hatchlings, are a great alternative, or an addition to fruit flies and pinheads.
Nice. Yeah. Also, because I got little geckos that are like this big right now. Yeah. So definitely, I can probably use some of that stuff right there.
Yeah, because they're such, and it's an addition. Like we were talking, like I said, I don't think there isn't a one perfect or, best feeder. You got to really mix it up.
So how long do they take to grow from hatching to cocoon? How long does it typically take?
About 6 to 8 weeks.
Really? Okay. That's a significant amount of time.
So they don't grow as fast, because that's the one question I get all the time. Do they grow as fast as a hornworm? And I'm like, no, because a hornworm can be like a half an inch, and the next day it's like an inch, and you're like, what am I gonna, and then the next day it's like 3 inches. What am I going to do with this? Yeah. But they can grow as large, but it takes a longer time. Good to know. Yeah, so a lot of people will, like, I just got an order today of 1,000 smalls and 250 mediums. So they're going to feed off the mediums, and then they're going to let their smalls grow, because by the time they run out of the mediums, the smalls will be catching up. Okay. So it's really, but they're not so slow growing that you're like, okay, I'm waiting for you. But they just they're just very consistent, and it's usually about 6 to 8 weeks, and then they are cocooned. Okay. Cool. And then it takes about another 2 weeks for the moths to emerge. Nice. Which is funny, because that's one of the things where you were like, what got you into breeding? And it's like, we really don't breed. We hatch eggs. I do breed, and I do have eggs, but the breeding process takes a long time. Really? Yeah. It takes a long time because the eggs have to go a diapause. So once the eggs the female lays the eggs, then they have to turn a certain color. Then you have to put them in the fridge for 12 weeks. What? Then you can take them out, and then they will, because the silkworms in nature, they go through this process during certain times of the year. So you have to trick them, the eggs, into thinking, oh, okay, it's time to hatch now. So it takes a while. As a matter of fact, I just pulled out about 1,000 eggs, maybe 1,500 that I got from moths, but they've been in the fridge since February. Wow. And I just pulled them out.
Well, you would definitely be ready for breeding chameleons then, with all that diapause.
Oh, yeah. So it's but it's definitely a process if you want to do it all yourself. I mean, and you would have to have a lot of moths. And each female lays about an average of 300 eggs. Wow. That's a lot. Which looks like this tiny little amount. But like 300 eggs, you would look at it and go, maybe there's like 25. Like, just looking at it, 25, 50. But there's like 300 average in each one. So like, I have petri dishes of like, and that's how I get them. I put the moths in petri dishes. So when they mate, they lay the eggs in the petri dish. Only half of the petri dish. And then once the moths are done, then I'll feed the moths off and I cover the petri. I put the top on and then I write the date on it. And then I have to wait 3 months.
Right in the refrigerator?
In the refrigerator, yeah. So they lay them and they're white. And then once they turn like this purplish gray color, you wait 7 days. And then once that 7 days is up, then you can put them in the fridge.
Then
So it's a process.
okay.
Yeah, that sounds like one.
Yeah, and so I do both, but primarily the majority of it is purchasing the eggs.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's like science, man. It's like little science experiment, not experiment because you know what you're doing, but it's like science. Awesome.
Well, and teachers like to do the silkworm cycle in class, and I'm actually getting ready to put together a teacher package. So, excuse me, over there. That's Doug. He got home from work, by the way. Yeah, no. And so, but I'm getting ready to put a teacher package together where they have the life cycle, you send eggs, and information, like a little kind of, booklet with the different steps and the instars and how big they grow. And I just think it's and I have a close family friend who just became a teacher. She just graduated. And she's so excited. She's like, "Oh my God, I can't wait until I can do this," And she's got a bearded dragon, and so she's like, "It'll be so cool to like do this with the kids, and to because then I can also use that as well, because I was in the classroom, so whenever it comes to the kids, I'm always like, oh, I love all of this. I used to take the chameleons into the classroom and do PowerPoints, and
that's awesome.
From TK to 5th grade. It was so much fun. And Douglas and I, we would do like presentations at summer camps. He'd take snakes, I'd take chameleons. And the kids loved to feed the chameleons. I'm like, just put this in your hand. Some kids were terrified of a bug. And then others are like, oh, let me see it, And it's really funny because girls seem to like the bugs more than the boys, which I've always thought was fascinating.
That's shocking.
Because we always think like girls are so.
Always think the opposite, yeah.
Yeah, we always think the opposite. And the girls are like, oh, let me see it. And the boys are like, ew. Which I think is really funny. I don't, and it's funny because I'm like, when I first got a chameleon, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not touching a roach. There's no way. Now I'm like, they can crawl on me and, when I'm cleaning a bin, I don't care. But I guess you get used to it. Or you don't have them.
Yeah, either one. No, I just got pooped on by a roach today, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, I was feeding a roach off to one of my geckos, and she was on the glass, and as soon as she bit him, she dropped, and I caught her, and then next you know, all the roach starts pooping all over my hand. I'm like, really, dude? This how you're going out? It's like, okay, all right, well, now your food, leave me alone.
Oh yeah. That's exactly what happens. I have a Jewel Lacerda right here next to me, and he is notorious, man. He's crazy. And I'll put a roach, and he bites half the roach. So the other roach half is still on the tongs, and I'm like, okay, come on, get the other half. But I've got him tong trained. I like click, 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 and he comes running for his food. Yeah. My first Jewel Lacerda, we rescued it. Somebody messaged me, and they're like, do you know what this is? I went, that's a Jewel Lacerda. They're like, everybody thinks it's an iguana. I was like, no. Somebody found it in their backyard. And I was like, I'll take him.
It's crazy.
And so I love Jewel Lacerdas. And Frank Payne actually mentored me with the Jewel Lacerda. And so I promised Frank, I'm like, the next time I get a Jewel Lacerda, it's going to be from you. And then I went into a major reptile store with some letters in it. And there was a Jewel Lacerda in with the veiled chameleon. And my mom was with me, and she goes, Mare, is that thing supposed to be in with the chameleon? And I looked at it, it was black. And I went, what is that thing? And so I got
the melanistic one?
No, he was so stressed. He was almost black.
Gotcha.
And I didn't even know what it was, and I owned one or kept one. And so the guy's like, what? I go, what is that? And he goes, it's a jewel Lacerda. I went, are you sure? He goes, yeah. And as he got the jewel Lacerda out. His name is Kringle because I got him at Christmas time, so I named him Kringle. And his color started coming back, and I go, well, how much is he? Because I was like, if they're putting him in with a chameleon, he should not be here. So he goes, I think he's like $30. And I went, you can pack him up right now. He should have been $300. So I messaged Frank and I sent him a picture, and I was like, I lied. I got a jewel Lacerda today. I'm like, but I got him for $29.99. And he goes, I would have gotten him too. And I told him the story. And so this little guy, but he's got a personality.
I hear
and it's funny when they say, oh, like reptiles don't have personalities. I'm like, oh, yes, they do. They do for sure. And
most people I know.
yeah, right. So I really enjoyed like having them for somebody who said, no, we have cats. You can't have a heat lamp. And now I've got in this room alone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 heat lamps in just this room.
Oh, that's
this
warm.
Is the reptile room.
Oh.
But my son's a snake person. So we have snakes. He's got a mangrove. We've got rat snake. I've got a hybrid. That's my girl. We've got king snakes. We got an English king snake. So we have all. Oh, he heard.
I can say it.
He's like, oh, you're talking about snakes now?
I'd like to say it. Yeah, I got an English king snake. I have a banana chocolate California king pinstripe. Variable. A variable king snake. She has the hybrid. That's hers. She has the hybrid. I believe that was the variable king, and then a normal corn snake, and then leucistic rat snake, and then a mangrove snake.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we've got a zoo, but not like you guys, I'm sure.
Oh no! Trust me, you got way more than me.
Really?
Like, I'm like pretty specialized with what I do. So it's chihuahuas, stropharis, and like some other rare geckos. So I don't have a big, massive collection.
My dream is a black night gecko.
Oh,
I want one
the leopard
so
gecko?
bad. And actually, I have a breeder that I sell to, and I was like, I'll give you free silkworms for a year if I can have a black night gecko.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I will give you $100 worth of silkworms for a year. And he's like,
I know someone that has some.
If I catch one out, I will give you one. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I know someone over here that has some. I'm actually going to be meeting up with him next Sunday too.
Well, if they want some free silkworms,
I
want one so bad. They're so cool.
I want the Chinese cave gecko.
I know some people that do those too.
Oh.
Yes.
No. No.
Once the mangrove snake gets into the enclosure.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh my god.
You guys have a good one.
You too.
Yeah. So, but I saw a black night gecko and I just fell in love. I'm like, oh my gosh, and then is it crested geckos? They eat the silkworms too, and the leopard geckos. Like, there's so many things that eat them.
Yeah.
Scorpions, frogs.
Yeah.
Jumping spiders. I sell tiny little ones to jump for this person who has jumping spiders, like tiny ones. It's really fun. Tarantulas, and I get all these videos, so I love it. I tell them, like, please just send me a feeding video because I love to post them because people are like, "What are they eating?" And I'm like, "It's a silkworm." Yeah. So it's kind of cool when you see different things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with eating a silkworm, and they're eating them, or using them for bait. To go fishing.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I have a friend who she does a raffle every year for something, and I ask her every year, do you want silkworms for your raffle? Because they're great for fishing. They're really good, just like an earthworm or a nightcrawler or whatever. They're great.
I can only imagine. I've been fishing with waxworms since I was a kid. We use waxworms,
Yeah. So imagine a silkworm that's like this big on a hook compared to like,
Ooh.
yeah. It's kind of just
Nice.
like an earthworm or a night crawler.
Popular. These silkworms, I mean, I've been in the reptile hobby for I was born into it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching and looking at every type of feeder since the 80s. And
Mm-hmm.
over the last, maybe less, but say for 10 years, for argument's sake, these silkworms have taken off. Like they
Yes.
never on the radar, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They are, again, still a little elite or they're just a little hard to get. And I'm assuming now after speaking to you that it's because they're a little harder to keep alive for some people.
Yeah.
But the more people have gathered or been gathering the nutritional benefits of these things, I've
Mm-hmm.
2 years alone them shoot to the top of the feeder list.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because there's some people that are like, oh, they shouldn't be a staple. And I'm like, if they shouldn't be a staple, what should be? You know, because if you look at the nutritional value of them compared to like crickets are 74% moisture. Like I have a chart, 18% protein and 6% fat.
Hmm.
Silkworms are 76% moisture, so a little less or a little 2% more, but 64% protein
Hmm.
and 10% fat. So it's like, and then you look at mealworm, 59% moisture versus 76, 10% protein, which is nothing.
Yeah.
And you know and the calcium alone in a silkworm is
Absolutely.
like 34 compared to the closest to it is like a cricket and then a superworm
Hmm.
for calcium, but the amount of calcium in a silkworm is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And
You definitely get
people
more
don't
bang for your buck.
necessarily, you know, they don't look at you have to take all of the numbers, not just, oh, it's full of calcium. You also have to look at the fat content and the moisture content
Yeah.
and the body. Because
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
the chitin like on a mealworm versus superworm, you know, or like crickets with legs. And the other thing that's blowing up is grasshoppers.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
We talked about those
Grasshoppers
last
are
week.
amazing. So
Another
do you
thing.
Yeah.
get grasshoppers from Kai?
I want to, but I don't have anything that can really eat grasshoppers. I don't have
Okay.
anything that's
Oh,
big enough. I
Chewy,
the
mean, depending on
grasshoppers
Chewy is smash.
are.
it, just
Hmm?
Chihuahuas a smash those grasshoppers.
depending on the size.
Oh,
It
you can
depends on
get them
which ones
any
he has.
size.
Yeah.
You can get little itty bitty ones.
Yeah.
You can get big ones. Oh, and the grasshoppers. So Kai Fan and Kelly Grasshoppers, he is amazing. He's
Yeah.
amazing. And so the two of us, like, we support each other. And he's a classic example. I've never met him in person, but he is like my buddy. Like, I just adore him. And,
Yeah.
you know, anybody asks who needs silkworms, Beast Mode Mariana. Where do you get your grasshoppers? Kai. Because it's, you know, we know the quality. And all of the reptiles go nuts for the grasshoppers too.
What's the name of his company?
Cali grasshoppers, Cali hoppers. I can send you a link.
Yeah, please.
I'll send you a link. And he's awesome. And he also breeds
Monitors.
he owns Mangrove Mecca.
Yeah.
He does
Yeah. He does
mangrove.
monitors.
Yeah, monitors. Yeah.
Hmm.
We should have him on here too.
Yeah, for
Because he's awesome. Oh my god.
Yeah,
He's
Kai
the
is
coolest
really
guy.
good.
Yeah.
I think he usually does the Monitor podcasts with somebody else on the NPR network. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
definitely a good one.
he's awesome. But
Yeah.
so I feed grasshoppers as well. That's one of the, you know, I don't have them all the time.
Yeah.
And then, oh my god, here in Vegas, we have the grasshopper invasion every year.
We get that in the summer over in Arizona too. Like at the closer to like
I
August.
can go to the Home Depot and I get one of those paint buckets with a lid and I just walk through the lumber aisle. Boom, boom, boom. I tell my husband, Michael, go catch some grasshoppers. He's like, oh my god, I'm in Home Depot catching grasshoppers. I'm like, here's a bucket, go get them.
I don't
You know,
want
but they're in the lumber because they bring in all the lumber from outside.
Yeah.
and they're all on the wood. So they're all in the lumber section.
Yeah.
And so I literally, and then I just feed them for a few days, make sure that everything goes through their system, and they get grasshoppers. But Kais are, oh my God, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Too. But yeah.
I'll definitely try to breed those.
I was thinking about that too, but whew, I've got the right climate for it. You do too.
Yeah.
Got the right environment for it, but I don't know. I don't know if I would be able to just handle grasshoppers everywhere. I don't know. Silkworms are much easier because they're slow.
And they don't jump, right?
No, they don't jump. They don't do anything.
I think I had the silkworms. I just had them in an open 6-quart container for each size.
Yeah.
Because I think I was reading your directions saying don't cover them. Make sure it has a lot of open air. I was like,
they need the airflow. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's another thing with when you get an order from me, you get a pair of tongs, you get a care card. I just started doing tongs not long ago because I thought this is going to benefit people to just use them from minute one instead of trying to grab them with your fingers and stuff. Yeah. But I give a care card, and it tells you, like do this, do not do this. It's highlighted. So, and I think if you follow that card, it's pretty easy. And I'm going to start selling a kit to keep them in. I have them. I just haven't put them online yet. So there's going to be a container, a few pieces of the black plastic so that you can switch it out if you want to clean them, and tongs. And I also on my website sell bee pollen powder, granules, propolis, and spirulina. So I like to throw in samples a lot of times, with the orders, because people don't always know about those things. Yeah. And they're so beneficial to the reptiles. So it's nice to have that, I think it should just be part of gut loading, period.
Yeah, absolutely. So
or dusting.
How would you keep them for someone like me that's never had them before, and I was going to buy them from you for my first time? What would you tell me to do? What would be your tips to me on say, hey, Anthony, this is how you're going to keep these alive for the next 6 weeks. This is what you do.
Okay, so I send them different than anybody else. Most people send them in a plastic cup, which is how I got my first ones, and they were a big ball of mush. And I had to pick through them, and they weren't healthy. It was a hot mess. And so I've come up with a way where, and Jason, I don't know if you got them in a box. You should have gotten them in a box, right?
I got it in the post office box.
I use 3 boxes to ship silkworms. And so I have a small box, and then I put food down in mesh. Yeah. And then I put another piece of mesh on top of them so they're not flying all over the box. And the mesh stays intact because of the height of the box. Then I put a silica packet in so that it's not too full of moisture from the food in another box. And then I look up each zip code. I look up each city before sending them out. And if you need an ice pack, a heat pack, I send it all. It's not an extra charge. You don't have to check here to add a $5 heat pack. It's part of it. So I try to get them to you as healthy as I can. Sometimes the shipper might have an issue, but even if they do, we have a 100% live arrival guarantee. You're going to get new silkworms if there's an issue. And so you get a care card with them. And the number one thing is when you get them, take the black mesh out and you put them in a plastic container. I like about 3 inches, maybe, like a Tupperware or Rubbermaid container.
Like a 6-quart container.
Yeah, something like that. And it depends on how many silks you order, too. If you order 25, you can have a smaller container. If you order 500, you have to have a larger container. Yeah. And you basically pick the black mesh up, you put it on its side, and you can either, some people order prepared chow, and then others get powdered chow. If you get the powdered chow, you make it. It's easy to make. And you just put the food out, and they will climb off the plastic mesh onto the food. They will find the food. It's amazing how they find it. And that's pretty much all you have to do. They are not like a hornworm where you have to dump everything out every day, or they will move to wherever you put the food. I grate food over all of mine, so I have a grater, and that's another thing that's going to come in the package. With if you get a set, you're going to get a grater as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And you grate the food, and they come on top of the food. And as long as you continue to do that, and you have them in an environment that's not less than 70 degrees, because if it's super cold, they just don't grow as fast. They won't die. They do really well in a colder temperature, like if you're shipping them, but you can't put them in the fridge. That's one of the things that's highlighted. Do not refrigerate the silkworms. Do not put them in the sun. A lot of people put them up on one of their an enclosure where it's warm, like by a heat bulb. And they pretty much are self-sufficient as long as you're just not overly touching them. Because people are like, oh, I got to clean them every other day. I'm like, no, you don't have to touch them. If you just put food elsewhere, they'll move. Then you can pick whatever out. So they're relatively easy as long as you're not doing too much, if that makes sense. You know, because people hear, they're so sensitive, and they're so delicate. But as long as you just leave them alone, they grow, and they get their food. They're happy.
No substrate in this container. Water. No water.
No, nothing. The commercial chow has the hydration for them. When I make it, you have to refrigerate it, and it comes out
It's like a little paste.
Kind of like a paste,
almost
like
maybe like Play-Doh a little bit.
Yes, like a Play-Doh.
Yeah.
And so it's you can work with it. And if you just have a few, I'll tell people I'll take like a little pinch, and I just do it in my fingers, and you can just lay it down, and they'll go to the food. But when I have like eggs that are like a day old, I do like a fine grater over them. They're completely covered with food, and I can go back in an hour and it's black from all the silkworms. Because the silkworms look like black pieces of thread when they're babies. Yeah. When they first hatch, and then they turn white. I also love zebras and the reverse zebras. Those are kind of like my thing too. I'm all about I have 25,000 that just hatched that are zebras. They just look cool. They're just a different kind of variety. They're all nutritionally they're all the same. Yeah. But they just look different. And then the reverse zebras are black with white stripes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So and then they have them in different cocoon colors too. Like I have some right now. Actually my supplier gave me, he goes, I've never seen the cocoons. He goes, because I always sell the eggs. I don't ever raise them to see the cocoons. And I'm like, he goes, do you want to take some and raise them to cocoon? And I was like, yes, please. So he gave me 250 pink and 250 green. And so I can't wait to see what the cocoons look like. I've only had yellow cocoons.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it's really cool. And they feed them different things. I was reading the other day, if you give them beetroot, they'll make like a pink cocoon but I'm like, I'm not, well, let me not go get beetroot. I don't really care.
But yeah, this may be an question, but are silkworms actually how they get silk, right? Is this how they make silk?
Yes. Which is a really sad thing coming from a silkworm provider to feed silkworms, because when they get the silk, I actually posted a video not long ago, and they literally have these huge wheels, and the silkworms live on these wheels, and then they cocoon. And once they cocoon, because when the silkworms make their cocoon, when they're spinning their cocoon, it's one thread of silk. They take the cocoons and they boil them, which for me is like, oh my God, they're killing the moths, but that's how they get silk. So they boil the cocoons, and they get the piece of thread, and they pull it, and it's one piece of silk, their entire cocoon.
I've never known that. I never knew this. I feel like I'm
it's amazing
episode of Believe It or Not. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, because
For the
And I
mall.
have like videos of like where they're half cocoon, where they're in the middle of making it, and you see them, and it's like, God, they're so amazing. Like they just like kind of like a spider, like with the web, you know. But this cocoon is like made from one little tiny strand of silk, and then I think, how many strands do they need to like make clothes, like to make a shirt, or because
A
that's what
lot.
they do when they dye the silk,
Yeah.
and then the people like where they when they raise them for the silk, that's when they feed them certain things to get different colors of cocoons.
That's what made
So
me
it's
happy.
really, it's a cool process, but it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
whoa.
It's like, I think I seen it on it was on the show. I was watching Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmerman,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it was in Thailand or something.
Yes,
And they
Thailand
had this
probably.
big old, it was like a big old bowl of boiling water, and they had a little machine right next to it, and they just dumped all the
Yep.
cocoons in there, starts, and those ladies are so fast. They're just whipping them out.
It's
Boom, boom, boom,
amazing,
boom.
right? It's
Yeah,
like, and they just like, they have this little thing and it goes, man, they just pull the thread, and I'm like, oh my God. But it's
yeah.
like, I don't even know what's more amazing. The ladies, or the people that do that, or the silkworms that
So,
actually make the cocoon, because it's like,
yeah.
it's crazy that to
Yeah.
think that that's what they do. And they're just like cool little creatures, you know, they're amazing.
Oh yeah,
No.
definitely.
And my supplier all the time, my egg supplier, he's like, are you sick of this yet? I'm like, no, send me more. And he's like,
Yeah,
how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, 4 years. I just had my 4th anniversary. He's like,
nice.
are you sure? And
Congratulations.
he sends me all of his customers because he's not hatching silkworms anymore. So
Oh,
he sends me all of his customers. So I have like a major supplier sending me
That's
his
awesome.
customers. So
nice.
I'm very blessed. You know, I feel like
Yeah.
I, like you said, destiny. It's like one thing happened and another thing happened and another thing happened, and it's all just come together. And now I'm representing Susan, who started it. And, you know, it's just what I love to do. And then my husband's like, well, when we retire, we're going to go traveling. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with the silkworms? Well, we'll make a place. I'm like, okay. He goes, you can ship from anywhere. And I'm like,
It's very
okay.
true.
Yeah, it is true. You know,
Yeah.
because he's like, we'll just have a big RV and we'll just have a room for silkworms. I'm like, okay,
Sounds like
whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I love it. And
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, because, you know, that is like not very far away. You know, my husband's got like 7 more years, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, is
Listen,
Douglas going to want to take it over? You
retirement
know?
time where you get to make your own choices, if you will. Retirement is for enjoying life. If you're
Yes.
enjoying what you're doing, there's no sense
Yes.
in
And
much.
that's the key.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
key, because I enjoy what I do. Like, I love doing it. So I always think like, oh my God, what if I didn't do this anymore? Like, because it's really like when I go in there, I zone out. You know, probably like when you're working with your animals or your reptiles, it's like you kind of, even cleaning enclosures, you put in your earbuds, or you put the music up loud and you're like doing your thing. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've been doing this for like 6 hours. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, it's just what you do.
Yep.
And, you know, and that's part of like the whole thing is, you know, enjoying it. And I do. It's like, and Brian, my supplier, he's just like, I can't believe that you still like doing this. He's like, I just, every time because we text, and I went to go visit him a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I can't believe you still love what you do. And I'm like, I love it more than I did last year, so maybe I'm a little weird. I don't know. But aren't we all?
Well,
Yeah.
Especially, I think, like reptile people are like, we're
Yeah,
a
we're
whole
all weird.
different
Otherwise,
breed
we
of
wouldn't be doing
people.
any of this.
Because we're all about bugs and little
Yep.
creatures and like going to Yosemite. I go, Michael, look at that stick. Oh, I gotta get that stick. He's like, oh my God, we were on a bus on the oh my gosh, not a trolley, but the bus, like the shuttle. And there was this kid, he had a stick, and I said to my husband, I was like, do you think if I offered him $5, he'd give me his stick? He goes, oh my God. He goes, are you kidding me? And I'm like, that is a perfect stick. I'm like, I want that stick. He goes, Mare, knock it off. And I literally, like, I go everywhere. I'll make my son stop in the middle of the road. I'm like, go grab that stick. Because they're, you know, when you have snakes or reptiles, something that where you want to make their enclosure, well, we need all those things. Like the cork bark, like those things. I'm like, oh, all of it. I'm like,
Definitely not cheap.
No. So whenever I can, I mean, and in all my enclosures, they're pretty much 100% natural. Like, I might have a zip tie or two or Velcro. Like I use gardening Velcro, like to wrap things together because it's green and it looks more presentable. But I don't have anything fake, no fake plants, none of it. So it's like when you can get a free stick, you get a free stick.
Yep. Every time I go up north, I go to the Prescott Woods or Payson Woods, and I'm grabbing all kinds of stuff. Filling my backpack up full of stuff. I used to grab isopods from there too.
My God, yeah. Isopods and actually Douglas and I were talking about doing isopods because I have clearance to produce any isopod.
Nice.
So that was something
I didn't know you
needed.
needed. So is that just a Nevada thing where you need a clearance to do that?
No, that's the federal government thing.
Okay. Oh, the ship. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right. you have to have permits.
Okay.
To raise to sell them.
Yeah, is that agricultural?
Yeah. And so Susan worked on that, and she got clearance for all of it. And I was like, oh yes. And then I went to a friend's house. She's a breeder, and she had this big, huge, like 4 foot wide, I don't know, like of dirt. And I go, what's in here? She goes, my isopods. And I went, huh? She goes, yeah. She goes, I've got isopods that are $200 a piece in there. And I went, what? I go, maybe I'm in the wrong business. Yeah. I'm like, I need to start making those $200, breeding those $200 isopods.
Sure are.
But I had no clue there were so many different types.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Really morphs. I mean, they keep popping up with finding new species.
Oh yeah.
They're not even.
And the names they come up with too are just like, oh my God. And I look at it, I'm like, how'd you get the name out of that? Like, that just looks like a little roly-poly or a little springtail thing. Yep. I don't know. I don't know all the names or whatnot. And I'm getting ready to go bioactive.
Really?
For all my chameleons. I'm so nervous.
You won't?
So for your chameleons, are they all in screen cages, or do you actually do?
They're in Tamura in cages.
Oh, nice! Really? Tamura? That is nice. There. Okay.
Those are my chameleons.
Okay, Tamura Designs did those?
Tamura, yeah, Dale Tamura.
Oh man, that's nice.
Yeah. So I told him, I'm like, this is what I want. He makes the most incredible enclosures.
Yes, he does.
I mean, they're expensive, and people will say, oh my goodness, they're so expensive. But let me tell you, hands down, they are incredible.
Yeah, like he says on his thing. You can tell him,
I want this background. I want this color frame. I want this color bottom. Whatever lighting you want. If you want the humidifiers, if you want sun up, sun down, he'll put the computer in it. Whatever you want. I went and picked mine up. They were put together.
Okay.
So my husband and I went, because he works close to his factory's warehouse is by LAX. And so I went and we picked him up. And that's who had the Christmas party when I won the raffle from Susan. And oh my God, you talk about amazing. Like his rooms with all of his reptiles. And so I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, I've got to have like beautiful enclosures for my chameleons. And I had them in my bedroom for a while. And I loved it because I woke up and I saw this big, beautiful, all these, and the chameleons are looking at you like, where's my food, lady? And I loved it. And I just told him the other day, I'm like, I want to put the chameleons back in our room. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I love waking up to them. It's just really cool.
My wife, whole room, so I would take them out of there.
Did what?
I said, my wife gave me my own designated room just so I would take them out of the bedroom and the room.
Oh, this is a designated reptile room that I'm sitting in. I have a rough green snake. I have 2 snakes here. I have a snake to the left of me and another snake to the left of me and my jeweled lacerda, and then 4 chameleons back there. And then in my son's room, he has the mangrove snake. That thing's 7 feet long.
Yeah,
And he's
those
got
things
a
are so
rat
cool.
snake, and then he's got the 10-year-old chameleon. And then in my room, I have another one chameleon that I just got not too long ago that has the eye issues.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing. People are like, "Can you take a chameleon? Can you please take my sick chameleon?" I have no more room. I have no more
That's
wall
always hard.
space. It's really hard because, especially like with an MBD animal, they're like, "Can you please take it? Can you please take it?" Some people will ask me if I can just take it and get it healthy and then give it back to them. I'm like, no.
No,
If I put
it's
in
like,
all that time and energy,
yeah,
you're not getting it back.
no. It's like, I mean, if that was the point,
Yeah, then
you
your
should
face
just
is
go ahead
like,
and do it
what?
yourself. Yeah, go do
Yeah.
it yourself.
So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not taking any
It's
that
a
I'm going to give back.
especially take
But
things to rescue. I mean, we all want to do the best we can for these animals, but we're inviting vet bills that, just because you didn't take them to the vet and you didn't do what's right, like now I'm gonna have to, and you're putting that responsibility on me, and you're it's just it's
yes,
a bad situation to be in because you don't want to say no, but you ultimately know what you're in for if you say no.
yes.
And it's like
Well, my Zoomer, my Ambelobe chameleon is a perfect example. Um, I was told he had like a little eye issue, blah 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 blah. I went to go pick him up. The cyst on his eyes, you couldn't even see his eyes, and I
big
was like,
deal for
oh
me. And
my god, he had to have surgery. I took him. Luckily, I have a wonderful vet here in Las Vegas, and he is one of the only ones that really specializes with reptiles, and he's incredible. And I told him, I was like, they didn't change their bulb for over a year, and they gave him Reptivite with D3 every feeding. So instead of plain calcium, they gave him the Reptivite with D3. He had no UVB to help break down anything, and
Yeah.
these bulges were crazy. And so Dr. Sullivan, he did the surgery, and one eye is perfect. It's really great, and then the other eye still has a little bit. I don't know if he's going to have another surgery, but when I went to pick him up, they say, "Oh, we've been putting this in his eyes." And it was a little tube. And I said, "Oh, did you take him to the vet?" And they were like, "No, we Googled it." I'm like, "Okay, I got to go now." Because I was like going to lose it, because I'm like, you just Google it and you stick something in their eye. And so yeah, it's really hard to say no because, especially when you see them. When you see the animal, it's like, oh my God. But it's like, I only have so much space and time, like you said, and money,
yeah,
Yeah.
because the vet bills, you never know if it's going to be, it's 100 to walk in the door usually, or about. And
try.
then it's like, if you need a medication, depending on the medication, if you need surgery, God forbid, it's like, can be $1,500.
Yep.
So it's a lot, but
That's why
luckily I haven't had to do too much
That's
that's
good.
money wise with, like sick
yeah.
chameleons or any of them. We did take the mangrove. We took the mangrove the same day that we took Zoomer, so I got a discounted rate for the second pet. I'm like, woohoo! And we had to give him 4 Taz every 3 days. And the snake did great. The doctor was awesome with him, and so I was like, but if that's the worst thing that we have to do, we're good. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
So, like you said this is a big time process with doing everything, right? So, if someone
mm-hmm.
wanted to start trying to breed them or just have like a little project or something,
It's
how would they
funny.
go about that?
Yeah, it would be more so a hatching project, not a breeding
Yeah.
project. Because
Gotcha.
you'd have to get the silkworms first and raise
Mhm.
them before you can breed them.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, my suggestion would be if it's something where you really want to raise your own silkworms, I would start really small. And I think the smallest amount of silkworm eggs that you can order are like 100. And then, and honestly, the silkworms aren't the expensive part, it's the food.
Mhm.
I go through 10 pounds, a 10-pound plus sometimes 20 pounds of food a week. And each bag is $130. So you're talking, it's a lot of money to feed the silkworms. Now, obviously, if you only have 100 silkworms, you're not buying a 10-pound bag of food.
Yeah.
But you have to continually have the food to feed them because they can't, they can survive on carrots. Like I said, we did an experiment where they lived a month, but that's not really how you want to raise a silkworm.
No, you want to give all the nutrition you can get.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you start small, like buy 100 silkworm eggs, hatch them out, see if you can do it. Because like I said, like 1 out of 10 people can hatch them successfully and like go through the entire process. And in order to breed them, you'd have to get through the entire process until they, cocooned and became moths. And then you're waiting, like I said, they mate, and then the female lays her eggs. It's another 12, 13 weeks before you can even get those eggs to hatch. So it's more so if you wanted to do your own thing, it would be more so like on a smaller scale, just buying the eggs, hatching them out, feeding them, buy more eggs, hatch them out, feed them. More so than breeding. Unless somebody wanted to just breed them for fun.
Yeah.
But that's a long project. That's like a whole season.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing. You're tricking the eggs for a season.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we, like I said, we do hatch, we do breed, but it's primarily I buy the eggs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's only really 1 or 2 reputable places to buy eggs from.
Okay. Are they here in the U.S.?
The U.S., yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I stick with one person, and he's wonderful. And so I'm like I said, I go visit him. I take, I appreciate him so much because it's like he's kind of walked me through it too, as well as Susan.
Yeah.
So
it's always good to have those kind of people behind you.
I'm sorry?
I said it's always good to have those kind of people behind you.
Oh my gosh, for sure. In anything that you do, it's good to have support,
Yeah, good support system. There you go.
Oh yeah, because without it, like, what do you do?
Exactly.
And if we go on vacation, I have a neighbor. My neighbor even knows how to take care of the silkworms.
Training everybody.
I'll be like, dude, you want to feed my silkworms for 2 days? I'll give you $100. He's like, okay. Because I just want to make sure that they're taken care of. If we all wanted to go on a vacation, like, that's what we do. We're UFC fans. We went to UFC 300. We didn't go to it. We went to my best friend's house in Missouri. And so I was like, oh, we need to have somebody to take care of all these animals. So it's nice when you have somebody that can take care of it all. You went you with UFC. Who do you like?
I'm a die-hard Strickland fan, Did you watch the fights last night?
Yes.
Yeah, I love Strickland. I love Strickland. He's my favorite fighter in the UFC, but I like a lot of guys. I'm fire hand-to-hand combat. It's story for another day.
I think probably the last 5 years, maybe I've really gotten into it.
Really?
Like, it's really fun for us. Like, we've gone to a few here in Vegas. I'm a Cody Garbrandt fan.
Really?
And I thought when he beat Dominic Cruz, I was so excited. I was screaming at the top of my lungs because I watched the documentary on them.
Yeah.
So that kind of really got me in because we were going to go see originally Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes.
Really?
And we were driving from California, and the main card got canceled. And somebody on Twitter was like, you can get your money back if the main card's canceled. And I was like, so I called Ticketmaster, and sure enough, we got all of our money back. So we were on our way to Vegas. We watched the fights, and we drove back home.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, cool. We watched the fights, and we got our $800 back.
Tito Ortiz and Tank Abbott. I Chuck Liddell. I've been watching UFC
a long time.
Since K1 fighting broke off to UFC and Dana White start. I've been I've been watching it since it's been around. I'd say my whole life. I've been around longer than UFC, but
Yeah.
yeah, I love the UFC. Love UFC.
Yeah, I think it's just really fun. But
That,
it's way better. It's way better on TV than in person.
that was a hell of a fight that Rousey had.
Well, because you're not hearing the commentators and all that stuff. You know, I
Well,
feel like
you're so far away, unless you have ringside seats that are like $5,000.
yeah,
You're far away, but you hear it different. Like when they're actually like kicking and hitting each other, you hear it different than on TV. But you see it so close up on TV. When you go in person, it's like they're like little spots down there.
You're better off watching on TV. I have a couple friends that fight, and I've been to a few, not in Vegas, but out here in New York near me, and I didn't get to go ringside or anything, but you're better off watching on TV, because we were sitting, you can't even, I couldn't even tell if that was my friend or not from
Right. Yeah.
But that's my boy right there. Like, who? I'm like, the one with the red, I think.
Word.
You're better off.
Yeah, I'd love to get into the Apex though here in Vegas. Like when they have like the free fights, fight nights, and they're at the Apex. Oh my god, I would love to be able to figure out how to get into one of those. Because I think that'd be
some
really
silkworms. Cool. Like, hey, you got reptiles? Right? I got some silkworms.
Hey, who's got
Give me some tickets.
You know what? I would love to find a person, either like an athlete, a musician, somebody who has a reptile that would eat them, because oh my god, how cool would that be? What?
Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage was just in Vegas buying crested geckos. Crested geckos.
Oh, he was?
Biggest foods, healthiest, most recommended foods to feed crested geckos. Nicolas Cage bought 3 or 4 of them maybe 2-3 months ago now.
Yeah.
Reptile show out in Vegas.
Okay.
Figure out a way. You link up with Nicolas Cage. I swear to God, that's a way to get out there.
Yeah, I know Jason Aldean, he and his family had a chameleon that they got at like a Petco or a PetSmart and had a really bad experience. And I was like, oh, it'd be kind of like cool to get with him to like get another one and do it the right way, because that's my big thing, is when you go into a reptile store and they sell the correct items, but they're not in the enclosures. Like a chameleon is a perfect example. They'll sell like T5 high output 10.0s, or they might have Arcadias, but they don't have it. They'll have a T8 over the chameleon or a coil bulb. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why are you doing this if you have the correct items? Yeah. Selling them, show a correct enclosure. Not, with a little coil bulb or the death kit, as we call it in the chameleon community.
I think, do you know who Neptune's the chameleon is?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to do a thing with her.
Yeah, I believe she has like a kit now. I think it's with Zoom Ed, right?
Yes.
Or is it? Yeah, she has a kit.
No.
Or no, Pangea.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be doing I sent her pictures of Sweet Pea. She's going to be doing a special on MBD.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, because that's my big thing. Like, that's really my big thing. And I have like the Sweet Pea Foundation for MBD. Yeah. And it's on Facebook. And I have helped people from all over the world. I can't send them everything, but I mean, you name it, from different countries, they'll message me and I help them with their, with the correct husbandry. And a lot of times I'll try to find a bulb that they can use. And here in the States, I've got a girl right now, she's 16, and she got a little chameleon, and I send her silkworms. And she's like, I can pay you as soon as I get paid for my job. I said, you're not paying me a penny. I said, you want to take care of your chameleon. I want your chameleon to have the best. And I send her everything, like supplements and, and I said, whenever you need silkworms, you just message me. Because I feel like you have to give in order to help people. And some people just don't know. And I told her, I said, the first thing you need to do is tell your parents that you're giving me your address. Like, let them know. And I send the website, the link to the website. I'm like, so they don't just you're not just giving your address to some strange person because she doesn't know who
Yeah.
she's talking to,
Sure,
and so, but yeah, I send things every week. Somebody gets silkworms, like free silkworms, either a reptile that's recovering, or just laid eggs, or they just found out they have MBD, and I'll message them and I'll say, hey, I own Beastmode Silks, send my website so they know I'm not some stalker
Crazy person.
They're like,
Yeah.
who is this person asking for my address? And I say, this is who I am. And if you'd like silkworms, send me your shipping information and I'll get them out on Tuesday. And that's just what I do, and
Nice.
that's what Susan did with me. That's how I feel the silkworms were so much a part of her recovery and getting her strong that I want to do that for other people. You got to pay it forward when you can.
Yeah.
well, that's
And that's, for me, it's shipping a package, so.
great to
And
know.
and the little girl, she's like, I want to pay you. I'm like, no. I go, once you get situated and you have everything that you need, if you want to pay for shipping, great, but you will never pay for a silkworm. And if you don't want to pay for shipping, that's okay either. Either way, you're good. So
It's
Need
special.
more people like you in this hobby.
you
Definitely.
gotta do what you gotta do, and and then I don't have to do it, but I enjoy making sure that somebody gets the
Somebody else.
best.
Okay, that's so, it's so beautiful. That's so, man, that's so like just wholesome. That's what this community lacks. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
gatekeeping and so many people trying to brand things and label things, and they want the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But people breed into just breed. Nobody. I mean, I don't say nobody because people do, but there's group of people that just don't care this way. I mean, you have
Yes.
an amount of passion that is just really admirable. It's
Well, thank you. Yeah,
super cool.
I just, like I said, I fell into it by mistake, and I can't
Totally
imagine not doing it,
for a
you
reason.
know?
I can see
Yeah.
it.
And I, even before I was doing that, just the passion, like with the kids and taking the chameleon. I had a chameleon enclosure in the classroom. And so every day, the first day, the thing kids would do is they'd look, because if the light was on, they knew there was a chameleon in the cage, but they would never know which chameleon it would be. And so it was really fun. And I would get permission from the principal, and I'd go to classroom to classroom, and I would just take the chameleons, and I would have feeders. They learned about, because when I worked in Rialto Unified School District, and every textbook and every grade level talked about chameleons in science or reading. In some aspect, there were chameleons. So the kids really related to it. And then I'd have the kids bringing me sticks at recess. Miss B, look what I found today. And I was like, and I'd actually clean them, put them in the enclosure, and I'd take a picture. I'm like, look, here's your stick, in the enclosure.
Nice.
Because the kids have such a passion. And every year, there'd probably be at least 2 or 3 kids that say, oh, we have a chameleon. And they'd go home and they would tell their parents, this is not right. We need to do this. Miss B said we should have this. And I said, have your parents call me. Have your parents email me, because I'll go over everything with them. And I just think it's so important to
It is.
be able to share what you love to do and not expect anything in return. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, they'll do something, but they expect something back, or they're hoping they get something back. And even, I don't know which one of you I asked, but I was like, is this audio only, or is it audio and video? Who was that answered me? Yeah, and I was like, oh no, because I am like the kind of person, I don't want you to know who I am. You know what I mean? Like, just let me do my thing and help you or whatever. So I was like, oh, it's video. People are going to see me. But at the same time, people get a face with it, because you don't know who you're talking to when you send things
People
and
should.
talk to people.
No, not that you want anything. And I mean, we all know now that you definitely don't want anything in return. But I think it's good for people to know that they have someone they can turn to, someone that's there to
Yes.
without, it's not going to bash them when they feel embarrassed about something that's went wrong.
Yes.
Have someone like you that they can go to without being judged.
Mm-hmm.
But that's such a huge part of what we're lacking in this community is
Yes.
you
You
know
hit the nail on the head, because in my podcast that I did with about Sweet Pea, that is something that I emphasize. And I said, whenever somebody contacts me, the first thing I think of, how did I feel when I realized I had everything wrong? How did I feel? And I had the most incredible mentor. She walked me through everything. She would let me call her. I'd be like, I remember I was so proud of myself because I thought I got T5s, and I came home and I showed a picture. She goes, "Oh, honey, those are T8s. You've got to take them back." And I went, "No," But I remember how it felt. And so in that podcast, I said, the first thing I will say to people is, I was once in your position. I know how it feels to love something and know that you're not caring how you should about it, even though you're doing your best or you're doing what you were told. And I will do everything in my power to get you where you need to be so that you have a healthy reptile. And I was fortunate in that respect that I had somebody who didn't make fun of me, who didn't call me names, because on social media, when people are behind a keyboard, they can be so rude and insulting. And sometimes I read what people say and I'm just thinking, do you think that you know everything? Because we can all learn. And it's always changing. Like everything's always changing. But we have to have an open mind and an open heart to know that somebody else was doing exactly what I did. Somebody else is in my position that I was in several years ago. And
most
so I never forget that. And that's the first thing I tell people. I am not going to yell at you. I'm not going to call you names. And that's why I do everything behind the scenes. And some of the groups don't like that. They're like, well, you should be helping them in public. And I'm like, why? So somebody can bash them? I'll tell them, come in. I'll send them a message in Messenger, and then we work one-on-one. Because and that's the other thing, you get somebody here, somebody here, somebody here, somebody here. Oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. You shouldn't be talking to this person. And then they get all confused and then they give up. Then they don't want to talk to anybody. Then they delete their posts. So I go and I tell them, I will work with you one-on-one. You can ask me. And people all say all the time, I'm so sorry I'm asking so many dumb questions. That's the number one thing I get. And I said, you know what? They're not dumb questions. You're asking a question. If you weren't asking, then there'd be a problem. But you're asking to verify, to get the correct information. And as long as you ask, I say, ask away. And I always tell them, if I don't have the answer, I will find it. Because I have people that I can go to, like if it's a different, like a Jackson's. I'm not familiar with a Jackson chameleon. But I know people that can give me perfect husbandry advice.
absolutely.
So I would go to them. And I think it's so important that we have that mindset, because so many, like, once we know what we're doing, and we can almost do it with our eyes closed, and I always say, once you have correct husbandry, it's not that hard, but it's costly to get the correct husbandry, especially once you've already bought the incorrect husbandry.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah. And so I think it's just important that we have people that are understanding and care.
Absolutely.
And my son was working for a reptile store, and I said, dude, every single day you go in there, and if you are not familiar with the reptile, you look it up, you ask questions, because you do not want to sell something wrong to a customer and then them come back and say, well, you sold me this and blah, 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 blah. I go, because there's so many great places that you can find the correct information. And a lot of times it's just connecting.
Yeah.
And the same thing, you can find somebody who gives you horrible information.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. I see it all the time in those Facebook groups. I at
oh,
point now I don't even say anything other than I'm like, is that really what you suggest? Is that or is that really how you keep your animal? Like, because I like to know, like, who told you what? Because like I'll
yeah,
see leopard geckos to keep them in a 6-quart box with the the food bowl and the water bowl take up more room than the lizard has itself. So he's either swimming or he's
Yeah.
food
Yeah.
part. Like, where is the thing lit? Like, where's the, who exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Please just explain to me what happened here. Because, and it's those people that are giving the advice. It's like, oh, this
Oh
is
yeah.
how you do it. I'm like, you really just shouldn't be the one giving advice. Like, there's
Yeah.
advice out there. Let's just say that. As much as there is good, I hate to admit it, there isn't.
There's much not as bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and usually those are the people that, and they need the most help because they're overwhelmed with all of the advice they've gotten, and they can't differentiate the good from the bad because they're not familiar with it. So it's just one of those things where it's like you have to, you know, try your best. And I feel like a lot of times when you're in a group setting and people are telling you all these different things, it's like so many people they get upset and they're like, I'm just leaving this group because people are so mean, or or they're just people are just not nice, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Doesn't.
It's so much, and you get so much more,
Doesn't
get through to people so much more when you're caring and not berating somebody because they have a waterfall in their chameleon enclosure, they like that, or a fake plant. You shouldn't have a fake plant, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, tell them why they shouldn't have a fake plant. Like, tell them what the reasons are, not just yell at them in all caps, like that you shouldn't have this in there. And so, I don't know. There's got to be more people out there that care.
Yeah.
Oh, there is. It's just you got to weed through all the
You got to
negative ones
find
first.
them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You got to find them because they're not always like, they're not the keyboard warriors that are answering
usually,
every.
Yeah, and usually they're the most quietest ones as well.
Yeah.
Right? So you really have to search
it's
them
funny
out.
because when you asked me, I was like, okay, well, I've done like, the audio podcast before, so it's okay, but it's like, okay,
Well,
like,
I mean, it's not live, so we're good. Like,
yeah, no, but you know what I mean? And well, even if it was live or, not like whatever, but it's just one of those things I'm like, because I am like, once you get to like, when I know you or I'm comfortable with you, I'm like all over the place. Kind of like, hey, because I'm comfortable with you guys. But if I'm not, I'm like, so.
well,
But yeah,
you're talking about something that you love, so it makes it a little bit easier.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like when you have a passion about something, you can talk about it, and you can, go on and on about different reasons or why not. Just like you guys, like you love what you do, or else you wouldn't be doing it.
Love
But some people just do it for money.
They do. They do.
And when they do it for money, I think it sometimes shows, and
It becomes a job to them.
Sell something.
I mean,
it doesn't really ask a certain amount of questions. If you're breeding something, right? If you breed anything, if you make anything other than pay for like food, but if you're breeding an animal and you just send it to Joe Schmo without asking a question, you don't really care, right? You don't really care as much as the person that, I'm not going to say that in reptiles we should fully vet people and do background checks, but you should at least have a set of questions you ask somebody to make sure that you watched embryo in a mother's stomach that you raised into to another home, like it's.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you can't even go adopt a dog or a cat without answering. Like if you go to the Humane Society, when we got our dog, they had to come inspect the house. They did all these things. What are you going to feed them? Do you have a vet? What's the vet's name? What's the phone number? All these things. And it's like, and here you see like $1,000 reptile, or it could be more than 1,000. And you hope that it's going to a good home. That's why I said I'd have a really hard time like breeding anything, because I would just be like, oh my God, can I do checkups with you? Like to make sure that they're healthy, because I would be terrified. And I think that's my biggest thing is not knowing where they're going.
Yeah, that's rough.
And it's even like that with the silkworms. That's why I send a care sheet. Even when I go to when they go to the pet store, there's a QR code that they scan that has the card that I sent you, Jason, like that card. It has all of that in a QR code. So it's there. So it's like there's no excuse like why you're not taking care of whatever, the silkworms. And I feel like that should just be common, like to have something like that you send so that they know how to properly take care of something.
Yeah.
Well, between
and a lot of people just don't.
The 12 weeks and the refrigeration. I mean, you put in more time hatching those eggs than a lot of us guys do hatching gecko eggs.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. You got to have the heat just right. Like I said, I had a heat issue, and I lost trays and trays and trays of 25,000 silks in each tray.
That's rough.
That and it was nobody's fault, but it happened. And so you really and that's when I went out of town. Like thermostat. The one time I go, the thermostat does not turn off. I'm like, okay, well, but it happens, and that's part of having your own business is you deal with those things. Just like if something happened to a gecko or, a snake, anything. It's like anything can happen.
Right back. I got a big ass cricket on the ground.
I can hear those crickets.
So you do this totally full time? This is the only thing you do,
This
right?
is all I do. Yep.
Oh man, that is
this
so
is all I do.
Oh.
And it's funny because I got up, I went to the classroom every day. Now I work in my pajamas. Like if I actually had to get up and go into an office or a classroom, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I'm there.
But you know what? I miss the kids. And so I always tell my husband, I'm going to go back to work. He goes, no, you're not. And I'm like, why not? He goes, because then we couldn't go do fun things. He's like, we want to go away somewhere or whatever, he's like, you can't go leave on a Wednesday if you're in a classroom. And I'm like, yeah, you're
True.
right.
You got to kind of work around those schedules. Because I work in the school district as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm like an associate director of nutrition. And so I have like 8 out of we have, I think, 24 schools. And so definitely I have to make my schedule around that. So winter breaks, fall breaks, spring breaks, summer is kind of whatever, because I got I only have one school for summer feeding this year, so I could kind of do whatever I want right now. I'm only working literally Monday through Wednesday for the month of June, so I understand that trying to work around that schedule.
Yeah, and so we used to do that. Everything was around vacations, okay, what because my husband is an electrician for a school district. He works at Coronado, actually, in San Diego.
Okay.
And so he flies home every weekend, flies back, and or drives, because it's like a 5-6 hour drive. And so he stays down there, and so if he's like in a few weeks, I'm flying down on a Thursday, and then we're driving back up on a Friday for a wedding. Well, I couldn't do that if I wasn't working at school. I mean, summer I could, but you have to work around everything. So I'm just spoiled in a way, because I get to do what I love to do. And it is kind of behind the scenes because it's my own thing. And it's me. It's just in Douglas, Doug helps me. He helps me with so many things, like packaging and preparing boxes and whatnot. And if I had to do things differently and go to like a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock job, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do anymore. And like, because when I have to get up at 7, I'm like, oh, this is not the business.
Oh yeah, trust me, I'm up at 5 in the morning every day. I'm like,
oh, I know, because that used to be me, and I'd have to be out of the house by like 7 o'clock to get to school by 7:30. So I was like, no more. But I miss the kids. I miss that interaction. But I don't think it's not. I don't miss them enough to go back to work in a classroom. But I work every day. But it's not as long as I would. But I have to do the work. I don't get paid. Yeah, that's the difference too. It's like if you don't do it.
Yeah, especially if you're your own boss.
Did you see that thumb bubble?
Yeah,
Did you guys see that thumb bubble?
Yeah, that was on Anthony's.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh,
Oh, your Facebook thumbs. You got a
your
thumbs up
thumb
on
bubble
something.
just popped up. He's like, what? What
No,
thumb
yeah,
bubble?
Anthony won't be able to see it, but
Yeah.
so I said we're
He
coming up on
looks
2
so
hours.
confused right now. He's
Yeah.
like, what?
All
Oh
right,
my
so we're
god.
coming
I
up
feel
on
like I
2
need to do
hours
this
right
with you
now.
guys every week.
I say,
Seriously.
we'll start talking about chameleons next time.
Oh
Definitely.
my god.
So
Yeah, let's talk about chameleons because I'm all about that.
Would be
yeah.
awesome.
No. Oh my
So
god.
how can people get a hold of you, especially for ordering silkworms? And then also, do you have any shipping restrictions? Like, is there a certain time of, or there a certain like month you can't do it because it's just way too hot? Because I know you're in
No,
Vegas, and
I ship year round.
okay,
Just within the United States, I obviously can't ship. I I get customer. Well, I get inquiries just about. I had somebody on the website today from Turkey. I'm like, yeah, no, you're not getting silkworms. I mean, I'm like, oh, they really want silkworms, and I can't send them to them. But I ship all over the United States, and it really, the temps have nothing to do with it, really. I
okay,
mean, I've just kind of, Susan and I worked and worked and worked to get it down. Um, like I said, the ice or heat is included. I use Reflectix. I can wrap a package in Reflectix. And I look up, like I said, I look up the cities, and a lot of companies are like, that's on you. Like, that's on the consumer. You're gonna have to add the heat pack. You're gonna have to add the ice pack.
Sure.
You're gonna have to know what to do. And that's part of our customer service is like, you just, and I had somebody message me today, and she's like, well, a few of my silkworms died. Like, I've had a couple silkworms die. And I was like, and she ordered more. And I said, okay, well, I'll just double your order, like, to make up for that. But she's like, oh, no, well, it's not that bad. And I was like, no, you ordered 50, you'll get 100. You're good. I just feel like it's easy to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I hand count and then I make sure there's extra, because I don't want to be one of those people where they're like, oh my gosh, I ordered 100 silkworms and I only got 79. It's like, no,
yeah,
no, no, no. You're going to have 150 before you have 79. So, and people know that. And I had a customer recently, I didn't update my website, and she gets 100 smalls like every 2 weeks, every 2 to 3 weeks. And I only had 25s on there. I think I sold out of them. So because I track my inventory so that I know, and then I go up every day and update it. And so I sent her 100. And she messaged me. She's like, oh my God, you sent me my regular order, but I only paid for 25. I'm like, I got you. Because she orders 100 every 2 to 3 weeks. And she would have ordered the 100 if they were available. And I just sent them to her. She's like, thank you so much. But those are the kind of things, like, when you get to know your customers,
yeah,
you what I'll message them like, why you only ordered this many, or like, you only ordered 25, are you sure you don't want 100? Well, you didn't have, oh, I got you. And or food, I get that all the time. I forgot to order a pack of food. It's like $5. I'll take care of it, and I throw it in there because I know that they're going to come back versus going to somebody who gives them half the silkworms and they're dead. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah,
it's just customer service and caring.
The way you're running your business, you will. I can't imagine anyone buying something from you and them not coming back to you if they continue to buy these silkworms. I mean, you've just explained and expressed the best customer service in the feeder industry. Like, it's,
Yeah.
I wish more people, treat.
Well, when you experience the bad end of getting feeders, and you have something, and like I said, the only time I ever ordered silkworms and they came, and I'm literally talking a ball of mush. It was like the size of like a baseball. And I messaged them, and they were like, "Oh, sorry." They didn't offer to, like, send me new ones or help me figure out anything. And I opened the package. It was disgusting. And then that's why when Susan said, oh, I'll send you silkworms, I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Because that's what I expected.
Yeah.
And so if a customer messages me. I had a customer message me not long ago that said his silkworms were too big. He's like, I think you sent me larges by mistake. And I'm like, all right, I'll send you smaller ones. I said, let the other ones cocoon and feed the moths. I'm like, if they're too big, if it gets to that point, let them cocoon. And I sent him the next week. I sent him his order, but in mediums, because you just want. I do what I would want somebody to do for me, and that's not always the case in any type of scenario in customer service. And so I had a lady not long ago. She wrote the coolest thing on Facebook. She said, I got my silkworms today, and they were packaged better than some fine jewelry I've received. Well, because it's my fine jewelry.
Yeah.
It's, they're my babies.
They're
And
living
so
beings.
I want them to arrive alive, not in a ball of mush or dead. Like that's not what I want to represent Beastmode Silks.
Yeah.
And so you do, I take pride in it, because why do something if you're not going to take pride in it?
Absolutely.
And what's really funny is a lot of those places that sell silkworms are getting them from Beast Mode.
I wish my places out here would get them.
So when they ship something from their company, their Beast Mode Silks, the customer doesn't know that.
Yeah.
But so thank God, because if it comes up in a ball of mush, I don't want my name associated with it. But when you sell somebody, 5,000 silkworms, and then they're selling them on their website, that you want them to have healthy silkworms to sell, because I do wholesale. I sell wholesale 500 or more. You can get wholesale pricing, and so it's like you got to take care of each other.
Yeah.
And that's just, for me, that's the number one thing, is just taking care of the customer and the animals.
You said it.
Silkworms.
The way you wish to be treated. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. And so many people don't do that in any kind of environment, not just in the feeder business, but in any business. I see them, but in the feeder, oh my God, I see it every day. I got my roaches today and they're all dead. And I'm just thinking, how? And people are complaining because they're not getting helped by the company they got them from. And so I don't want that to ever happen, for somebody to say, oh, she wouldn't help me, or, they all came dead. And if they were, I had a lady, hers was stuck in her mailbox in Rancho Bernardo. It was 100 degrees. She had her, for somehow, she has like a 2-section mailbox, she was explaining to me. She said, my silkworms were in the mailbox for a week in the middle of summer and they were all alive. So it's like, if you pack them, if you take the time to pack and to do it correctly, they should live. Period. And if they don't, you get new ones. Because it's not my fault necessarily. Once they are out of our hands, you don't know what USPS is doing.
Yeah, you can't control anything after that.
USPS, UPS, FedEx, they all have their issues. Yeah. All of them. I mean, I have accounts with all three. But I use USPS the most because they are the most reliable for me in my experience versus UPS or FedEx.
But with the USPS, are you able to hold at the post office?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I live in an apartment, I have a lot of customers.
Yeah, I live in an apartment, so they wouldn't be able to put in their little mailbox.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of people that have them held at the post office.
Okay.
And then it's funny because sometimes USPS holds them on their own.
Okay. I know last time they didn't. They just put it on my door. And I was like, oh, they're here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and typically, like if they're out for a day, even at 100 degrees, they're going to be okay. Like if they're delivered and then they're sitting there. But, obviously you would prefer to have them held at the post office, but some people can't get to a post office, or, they work during the post office hours and, so I have all of my things. I got a post office box just for my silkworm eggs. Because I thought, if I lose one batch of silkworm eggs, it's more than 3 months of the post office box. So I have all of my feeders shipped to. Well, I don't really. I get black soldier fly larvae. That's really all that I pay for, and that's shipped to the PO box.
Yeah.
But having a package held is no problem.
Okay.
At all.
Cool.
So yeah, for sure.
Right. So this was definitely a great conversation. So where can people find you?
Well, I have TikTok, Instagram,
I'll follow you on
Facebook,
those. Yep.
website. So you can find me pretty much anywhere under Beastmode Silks. And then like the website is www.beastmodesilks-west.com. And I have people like, and my normal customers, they have my phone number. I'm not giving that out.
Yeah.
But well, like once they're a normal, like a regular customer, I'll text them, because I have all their numbers obviously from the website, and I'll say, hey, this is Mariana. I noticed this, whatever. And they're like, thank you so much for texting me, and so I have so many ways to be contacted, but Facebook, people get me under Mariana for Mariana Bullen. They get me under Beast Mode Silks, Beast Mode Silks West. Some people contact me through Sweet Pea and through the Sweet Pea Foundation. There's a lot of them, a lot of different ways to contact me.
Great. So we'll definitely put those in the show notes.
Put all the links.
Yeah, I can definitely. I'll send you I'll send you all of the information just so that you have it. And I know you've ordered, so it's like through Instagram, you got me there.
Yeah, that's how I found you. Yeah.
And Anthony, you're gonna get you some silkworms then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on the website after this. So I'm gonna check it out and see what I'm gonna order there.
Yeah, no, don't even order. Let me send you your first order.
I mean, you could do that, but I'd rather pay.
Yeah, I could do that. I will do that. Just send me on the website. Just go under notes or under the email and just pop me or even through Instagram. Just send me your shipping information and what size you want.
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, and then I'll just send you some. You can try them out.
A couple dollars to the thing for your charity or something. I mean, I don't know.
No, you're good. You're good. I will just send them to you because then you see how the reptiles like them.
Well, that's true. It'd be the first time I feed them to my new cow.
And because how I always look at it, if somebody, especially when I'm helping somebody or they haven't, somebody will be like, I got my first chameleon. I'm like, can I send you some silkworms? And they're like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, I am, because they're going to like them. And then then you have another feeder to choose from. Because like we were talking about, there isn't one best one.
Yeah.
There isn't a best.
Varieties,
they all need to be rotated. Because imagine if we had to eat the same food every day. Some foods I could eat every day, but imagine if you did not have a choice. And that's with all of these creatures. It's like they don't have a choice. It's what we give them. So if they have a variety, that's the best.
Very true.
And the thing is, too, if they're stuck on one type of feeder, what happens if you can't find the feeder?
You ain't lying. Yeah.
Seriously.
You ain't lying.
Seriously. It's like, oh my gosh. And you know what? This is kind of like a crazy little thing, but I had a chameleon. His name was Ringo. He had 3 parasites. He refused to eat insects. He ate the plants in his enclosure for 3 months while I was giving him these he was so full of parasites. It was horrible. And I got him off of, somebody sent me a picture of him and said, this girl's in college and he had 1 vertical vine. That's what he was on. And it was horrible. And all she gave him was crickets. And he had all these parasites. His enclosure was disgusting. And so all he ate was plants. And so I started putting like dandelion leaves and different things because he would eat the pothos. And so I said to my mom one day, how do they not make like ground up crickets? Or how do they not make like a powder or something?
They do.
Other than Reptiboost. I'm like, there's got to be something. Well, I went on Amazon and found cricket powder. They have cricket flour, and then they have cricket powder. So I bought cricket powder. And I was literally, so when I was taking him to the vets gave me the recipe for tortoise food, like a tortoise mixture. He goes, grind this all up, add some water. And I literally bought one of those little ice cube trays where the cubes are like tiny. And I spread it in there. And I would feed my chameleon from a baby spoon. I swear to God. I'd hold him and he would eat off the baby spoon these greens. And I said, I gotta get away to get this cricket that like insects in him. So I ordered the cricket powder. So the next time I made the mush, I called it mush, this green mush, I added cricket powder. And every day I was still providing him with insects, but he wouldn't eat them. So I gave him the cricket powder, mushed in with this green mush. And one day he started eating the insects and didn't eat the greens anymore. And so I always think sometimes you got to think outside the box too.
Oh yeah.
Versus this is tunnel vision. This is how you have to feed your reptiles. And sometimes there's these different avenues that you can take that aren't necessarily the standard, but if it gets them to eat, or so that's why to me it's important to have different feeders, because you might not always have a silkworm, you might not always have crickets. I mean, look, sometimes it's so hard to find crickets.
I'm sure.
Or they come, or how many times do you see somebody say, I got my box of 1,000 crickets and they're all dead?
Yeah, it happened to me. Yeah.
Then what do you feed them? You have to have different feeders. And so for me, it's like in an alternative like that, like having, like, how geckos, they eat those little, you can give them those little jelly things or whatever. Even if it's not the norm, but if you have it in case of an emergency, like if you can't get something else.
Yeah.
But that,
Plan B, C, D. I got breed.
You have to have more than plan A and plan B for sure.
Different types of bugs. I literally breed 6 different types of bugs for that reason. I've done that.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, and especially when you have a multitude of animals that you have to feed, it's like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine if they only ate silkworms. And like when I lost so many silkworms, I'd have to have the silkworms for my customers versus my animals, so it's like they have to be able to eat other things. And that's just, the lights are going out. We've been doing this a long time, huh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I can talk your ears off.
You're fine. Because
I love it. So
yeah.
Oh, now I'm in the dark.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, it was definitely great talking to you, Marina.
It was for sure.
Yeah.
Actually talk about reptiles one time.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll try to get you back on and talk about all your chameleons and all the good stuff that you've been doing with them.
Yeah, because and my son too, because he's the snake person.
Definitely get him on too.
Oh man, because he is as passionate. He's probably more passionate than I am when it comes to some of the animals.
Talking to snakes.
Because oh man, he is. Yeah, and that's the next thing. I got to get a big enclosure for the mangrove because that thing's going to be 8 feet long.
Yeah, they do. They're cool.
So I'm like, oh man, Dale, I need a nice big enclosure.
There you go.
That'll fit in the back of the truck.
Yep. I love Dale stuff. I don't want to have
to put that thing together. I want it to be put together and just bring it up the stairs. Put it in here. So, but for sure, I will send me your information for silkworms, please. And Jason, you too. And then I'll get you some.
Appreciate it.
I know it's hot, but is it really hot there yet?
It's 103 right now.
Yeah, same here. It's just a nice, warm summer day.
Yeah.
Not 110 yet. It gets
bad now. It'll get there soon.
Oh, yeah. When it's 110, then I'm like, oh, my gosh. But until then, I'm okay. But the best thing I ever did was when we first moved here, the first summer, we went to Michigan. And it was like 90% humidity.
Oof.
Oh, and it was like almost 100 degrees out. I was dying. I came home. I told Michael,
Texas right there too.
The what?
That's Texas right there too. Yeah.
Oh, I went to Texas for the first time 2 years ago. My husband and I went tubing. he's like, can I plan our vacation? I said, yes. The only thing that I'm asking of you is to make a video of what we're doing every day. Because he's not technologically, he's like, eh. And so I showed him like iMovie. I said, you gotta make me a movie. He's like, okay. And we went to Austin and San Antonio. I thought I was gonna die. Except for when I was in the river. And we went to Chili's one night, and the guy's like, how do you like it here? I was like, if somebody told me I could have a house for free, I'd say no thank you. He's like, I can't handle the weather. But after being in the Guadalupe River, I was like, I could have a house on the river. Because that Guadalupe River, oh my gosh. I'm a girl who likes to float.
Yeah.
My husband
I've been there a couple times. I took my kids there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but you got your body gets used to it, I guess. But just like the dryness, like. But he took me to Michigan, and when I came back home, it was 110 out. I was like, oh my God, this feels incredible, because it was so humid in Michigan. Yeah. You take a shower, you can't dry. And they even had a dehumidifier. I was like, oh no, this is not for me. No. But nope. All right. I'll take Arizona over Texas, but I take a river over the sand.
Yeah, for real. So, oh man.
Yep. But we got a lot here in Vegas because we got the Colorado River, we got the lake. I drive an hour and a half to Utah. We go to Sand Hollow to the state park. So we've got a lot of like water around us.
Yeah. So my kids, they live up north in northern Nevada, over in Carson City.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but they're actually coming down here for the summer. I went up there last summer. I was like, why is it so cold here? It was like literally, there was still snow in June on the floor. I'm like, what is going on?
Okay, it's funny. My friends just came out from Ohio, because I was born and raised in Ohio.
Oh, so my dad.
So they came out and they were like, we want to go to the lazy river. And I'm like, it was 80 degrees. And I'm like, I don't know if I can go in the lazy river. And they were like, what? I go, it's going to be cold. They were like, it's 80 degrees. I'm like, yes, I know. But my body, like, I was like, it's cold out. And they're like, this is wonderful. Because it was like 40 when they came. And it was 80 here. But we actually did get in the lazy river, and it was nice. But I was nervous. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I could actually get in the lazy river. Because we go to MGM all the time in the summer.
Okay. Yeah.
To the lazy river. That's like our thing. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. It's only 80 degrees. They're like, only 80. I'm like, that's when you know you've lived someplace long enough. It's only
for
80 degrees. Yeah. But we'd be freezing like if it was like 10 degrees. Oh, and they're like, men are out in shorts, and we're like in, or 50.
That's Anthony right there.
How it is out here. Flip-flop shorts, and it's 15. I'm outside working on the car. 15.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, oh my God, it's cold when it's like 50 degrees. So I'll take Vegas anytime. For sure.
All right.
But alrighty.
All right. So you definitely have a great night.
Yes,
I know I gotta go feed some geckos.
It was awesome.
I'm sure.
Wonderful. I gotta go feed some silkworms.
Wonderful.
But make sure you send me your addresses.
All right.
Well, I got yours, but I don't.
It's been my address has changed, so.
Well then send it to me.
Yeah.
Somebody gave me the wrong address, and I sent their silkworms, and I said, imagine those people that get that box.
What is this? Oh my God.
Yeah, they're like, what is this? Yeah. And I was like, she's like, oh my God, the address is wrong. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll send it to the correct address, because that's not, it happens. Or like the numbers are reversed. That happened too. Numbers are reversed. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm like, but just imagine what they're going to, like what their faces are going to be like when they open the box.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just wish I could like just see one time when somebody opens a box that doesn't belong to them. And it's insects. Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, you guys take care. It was so great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thank you very much.
All right.
You
bye-bye.
too.
Take care. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.